Hi, my name is Breanna Olson and I'm a third grade teacher at Easton Arcola. I went to Fresno State and got a history degree and then a multiple subject credential. This is my second year teaching. Last year I taught a second, third split, and this is my first year teaching a third grade class for the whole year. I worked in Clovis Unified during my student teaching, and I did 6th grade, 1st grade, and kindergarten as my final student teaching. And then I was a substitute teacher in Fresno Unified, primarily for junior high and high school, just because I was a history major. My two goals this year were to really focus on planning my instruction and using assessment to support student learning. Before, I did not regularly use formative assessments throughout the year, just quick checks, but now I can track my students' progress in both informal and formal ways. Before, I was only able to plan week by week, but now I have units for ELA and math for the whole year. My first goal was to improve my ability to develop long-term and short-term instructional plans. I really just wanted to plan throughout the year for just to see the entire scope of the year. I wanted to do this by observing and interviewing other third grade teachers. I also attended all the professional development and PLC every Tuesday and Thursday at my school. This included professional development and PLCs for math curriculum maps and for priority standards, and then this even included science unit planning. I also attended 2 country school PLCs, which was all the country schools in Madera meeting together for extended days to plan for next year and plan our pacing for next year. I also researched and implemented a lot of CASP interim assessment and review to prepare my students for the end of the year SBAC test. We obviously didn't get to take it, but we did a lot of spiral reviews with using the Think Smart from the curriculum and just things that me and my CNI had created together. So the 3 main things I felt really exemplified that I had implemented these pathways were that I implemented a math journal for reinforcing learned concepts. I really hoped that the review of things we had learned would help them on the CASP. And then I also implemented spiral review from our curriculum called Think Smart, as well as 2 interim assessments from the CASP's website. So just assessments on priority standards or certain standard strands to use as review and also as assessment. I co-created math and ELA unit plans using the curriculum and using supplementary resources, specifically math and practice. This is an example of something I created for spiral review for the place value unit. It was just every day we did it as a warm-up just to remember what we had learned in the place value chapter. This is an example of the math unit lesson plans that I created. This is week 1 of the place value unit. It goes by days. It has the lessons that I used from the TE, the materials I needed, the vocabulary I needed, the practice for the kids, centers that we would do, and also the homework that they would do. This is a similar one, but for ELA, for grammar, writing, vocabulary, reading, phonics, and daily 5. And this is just 1 week of the entire unit. I tracked my growth, mainly obviously on the kids' growth, using their math chapter assessments. For this purpose, I just used chapter 1 and chapter 2. And then I also used their weekly Wonders ELA scores, so reading, vocabulary, and spelling over the course of 2 units. And I also looked at their NWA scores for the district assessments from September to January. We only had to take it twice. I used 3 focus students. One was an EL learner, an English learner. One was an RSP student, and one was an advanced learner. My first measurable outcome was I wanted to develop instructional plans, like you saw in the last couple slides. To see if my plans are working, I just decided that 80% of my student scores on the math chapter assessment will improve by at least 1 letter grade. So basically, I just wanted most of my kids to go from, a C or a D or an F or whatever, up 1 grade the next time they took it. So pre-assessment and a post. So this is the first time we took the place value assessment. There was only 4 questions, and it was a very quick process for the place value mastery standard. So we took it on September 4th, and our class average was 53%. We took it 7 days later, and our class average was 75%. So we definitely improved at least 1 letter grade. And my focus students went from 2 to 3, 4 to 4, same, and 0 to 2. This is another example. This is the addition chapter test. It took us a month. The first time we took it, 53%. The second time they took it after the chapter, they got 78%. And my focus students went from 6 to 8, 10 to 13, and 2 to 9. And this was out of 14 questions. For my second measurable outcome, I wanted to improve my ability to create curriculum maps, and this one's more focused on ELA. I looked at my students' Wonders scores on reading comprehension and on spelling, and I wanted them to show 10 points of improvement from the first unit to the last unit. Obviously, I didn't get to the last unit, but I just wanted their class average to increase. So this is Unit 2. Our class average for reading and vocabulary was 69%, so a D, and our class average for spelling was 74%, so around a C. By the end of Unit 3, so that was beginning of Unit 1, this is the end of Unit 3, we went from 69 to 87% on reading and vocabulary, and we went from 74 to 84% on spelling. So definitely at least 10 points of improvement. I also wanted to track my ability to create plans by tracking their scores on the district assessments, and I was hoping they would improve 10 points on all 3 of those assessments. From September to May, obviously we didn't get to take it in May, we took it only twice, so as long as I see growth, I was happy. We went from a class average of 181 to 186 for math, 178 to 184 for reading, and 180 to 189 for language. So big growth for language. This is our class data wall, which all the kids could see. For my focus students, as you can see on the right, this is all their improvement. They all went up by 7, actually, he only got 1 on language, but other than that, 7 or more is what they increased by. I also wanted to improve my ability to develop those lesson plans by also tracking my EL learners' LPAC scores. Obviously, I don't have those results yet, so I just chose to use the NWA language scores. Here's all my EL learners highlighted in yellow, and then here's their growth in this column. So they all improved by 3 or more. I was hoping that they'd improve by 10 points, which most of them did other than this kiddo. So our average growth was 13 points. Another measurable outcome I had was to connect all my kids on Class Dojo for the school closure and just make sure I'm staying connected to my kids and just keeping my ability to connect with them alive. So got 100% connectivity on Dojo. So did I meet my goals? I think yes, I did. Math, especially, we improved by over 20 points on each of those 2 chapters. For Wonders, same thing, 10 points of improvement. And for the district assessments, not quite the 10 points that I wanted, but obviously we only got to take it twice. My second goal was to use assessment data to differentiate and modify instruction. So I'm using my student scores to actually improve my teaching the next week. I collaborated with my grade level teachers and my CNI coach to develop 15-day plans throughout the year. I incorporated a focus wall for establishing the learning goals and researched and incorporated number talks. I used some tools to assess their reading scores. So outside of the SRI, which is the 3rd grade tool, I also used NSGR, which is the second K2 tool, and sight words and word knowledge inventory. I also implemented 2 interim assessments, which were assessments used for CAS. Oopsie, there we go. So how did I implement this? So I created a math standards checklist to track their progress for every math chapter, and I also tracked their weekly Wonders scores, which you saw. I tracked tracked their progress for the sight words, word knowledge inventory, all those things I mentioned, and I also incorporated word rolls for ELA, math, and science vocabulary. Here's the math standards checklist. This is just a bigger view of that place value unit. I used the red to show me which kids needed intervention and needed me to pull them small group. This is our data wall again, and this was just another way I was using the data to intervene, pull kids, show kids how our progress was. This is just an example of the multiplication and division word problems, and hopefully by the end of the chapter we would get to 80% so the kids knew our goals. This is an example of the data that I tracked for the sight words, word knowledge inventory. All the tabs are at the bottom, but this is just a way to track their progress. Obviously, I only got to the second quarter. This was our focus wall. This is our word wall for math, science, and the shades of meaning wall for ELA. So you'll see the evidence of my growth through my kids' progress on the math assessments, wonders assessments that you've already seen, and also on those other assessments, sight words, SSRI. So for example, the students should be demonstrating mastery for priority standards, so they should be improving by at least 10% to the fourth quarter. Obviously we didn't get to the fourth quarter, but you'll see on the next slide. So this is multiplication chapter, and the kids did really well in this one, and they got between 79 and 97% mastery for the math facts. And these are my focus kids. They all were 90% and above for mastery on their math facts. This is just another example of how I wanted to use my data to drive my instruction each week, and our goal was to keep about an 80% on the spelling scores each week, just to keep our focus. So this is 4 weeks in one of the units. We had 76% as a class, 82%, 85%, and 76%. So hovering between a C and a B for most of the unit, and these are my focus kids. I also wanted each of my kids to improve at least 2 points on the math NWA, just to prove that those number talks were working. This is all my kids' growth in points. All but 3 of my kids improved by at least 2 points, and my focus kids improved by 2, 9, and 10. Overall, as a class, we improved by 6. I also wanted to look at the SRI, which is the reading inventory for 3rd grade, and I wanted us to improve by 200 points. Obviously, we only got to take it twice, so it's not going to be quite 200. We improved by about 70 points from fall to winter. I also wanted to look at those 2 interim assessments for SBAC and see if they could go from nearing grade level to on grade level. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to take those IABs again. We did take a math and an ELA, but we didn't get a chance to retest. So did I meet my goals? For math, I would say yes. We hovered around C's and B's for mastery. For math, our class growth, all but 3 students increased on that NWA by 2 points. For our spelling scores, we hovered around the C or B. And for our reading progress, we increased 70 points, so not quite the 200 that I had wanted, but obviously we needed another chance to take it. So I would definitely say that I went from applying this first standard, creating instructional plans, I moved from applying to integrating. So before I was just kind of surviving, going through the motions every week, and I definitely would say I moved up, not quite to the furthest extent on that rubric, but just to integrating, so I'm now able to look further ahead, understand the content as a whole, understand the mastery standards for my grade level, and see kind of the big picture. As far as using assessment, I felt like I went from integrating to innovating. I definitely had a good handle on which kids had mastered what standard and how their growth was progressing throughout the year. My next steps, this summer I plan to create thematic units, so incorporating the social science and science curriculum a lot more heavily and getting to most of that curriculum in conjunction with their ELA curriculum. So it was a big task that I put out for myself this summer. I also want to attend professional development next year in math. Obviously, I really want to improve in math instruction, and I also want to learn some Kagan strategies. In 5 years, I just want to continue to create engaging units and connections with my kids and with my coworkers. Thank you.